Hi, Anna. We're in the studio again.
We find ourselves in the studio again, Cavi Studio. And we have a special guest, Dr. Olga Perez Flora.
Yes, hi everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you. So excited to be here with you both.
It's season 5 of Key Change, a podcast that began as a platform to talk about creating new operas through opera for all voices.
But we didn't stop there.
Maybe you found the show because you're an opera fan and supporter of new work.
Maybe you're an advocate for social equity and accessibility in the arts.
Maybe you're a friend, colleague, or a family member of someone who's been a part of the show.
Well, this season is about you.
We're expanding the conversation even further with the vision of inspiring the future leaders in opera.
I'm Andrea Fineberg with the Santa Fe Opera.
And I'm Anna Garcia with the Santa Fe Opera.
On this season of Key Change, we hope that our guests, programs, and stories will spark new discoveries about how you can become part of this movement.
Engaging artists and audiences, creators and communities, supporters and superfans to make the world a better place together. Well, big news.
So there's lots to talk about, but there's a big reason you're here. And that's because you are going to be the co-host of Key Change, because I, Andrea, am leaving the Santa Fe Opera to pursue artistic projects. I know, cue the tears. I know.
Oh my goodness.
It's momentous and it's big and allows for an opportunity to bring a new voice into the conversation, which is super exciting.
That is very exciting.
And so that's why Olga's here.
I think it's exciting. You're an inspiration. Everything you've done at Santa Fe Opera and with community engagement.
It wasn't me. It was a lot of people. Over 33 plus years, there's a lot of people in that story.
Okay,
They
I'll
were
buy
essential.
that. Can I say that you're at the top of that pyramid of people?
Thank you.
And can I say that I am 33 years old? Wow.
And look what you've done with your 33 years. It's pretty awesome.
I'm in the studio.
Yeah.
That's right, Key Change listeners. As this season of the podcast comes to a close, Olga and I are already dreaming up a new season for you as co-hosts. Cue the cheers.
We could call you Olga, right?
Absolutely.
Dr. Perez Flora.
No, doctor. I do make my kids call me Dr. Mom, but no,
Nice.
just kidding.
Why not?
No.
Dr. Mom's in the house.
Right.
So-
No, my oldest daughter, when she was in preschool, I'd go in and teach some music, for the preschool. And one of the little kids raised his hand and he said, "Are you a doctor?" And my daughter stood up and she said, "Yes, but not the right kind."
Oh.
Whoops.
Doctor of music.
So where do you do your doctorate?
At the University of New Mexico.
Yay! Everybody's a Lobo.
Yeah, that's right. Go Lobos. I am the head of voice and I direct the opera program. And I just became an associate professor last month. Just got tenure. So.
Confetti.
Yes. Yeah, very
Tenure.
exciting.
Yeah.
So love it. Albuquerque has been the surprise of my life, actually. When I was looking for a new position, Albuquerque was the last stop. It was my final interview. I'd already been offered a couple of positions at some universities and was really thinking about it. And I said, well, I'm gonna go to UNM and just check it out. I think that's the right thing to do. They brought me in for a final 3, and it's a full day of interviews. And at about 10 a.m., I thought, uh-oh. I really like it here.
I'm falling in love.
Yeah. And so when Eric Lau called to offer me the position and then offer my husband a position to teach, everything in me was like, yes.
You got that feeling.
I did. And it really surprised me. I already had these other offers on the table and had to say, nope, this feels right.
Oh, I love that. Love when that happens.
Well, they do call New Mexico the land of entrapment. For listeners who don't know, the motto is actually the land of enchantment.
Yes, it is quite enchanting.
Yes.
And I live in Albuquerque, but spend a lot of time in Santa Fe now, doing some work with Santa Fe Opera and, of course, coming up to enjoy the operas. And it is enchanting. That really is a really great moniker. It's so beautiful and magical. So I am thrilled to be here with both of you.
Thank you. So we thought for our listeners, we might provide a little primer, if you will, on the history of the relationship of the Santa Fe Opera and the University of New Mexico. And maybe between the three of us, we can fill in all of those pages.
Sounds good.
Shall we?
Let's go.
Okay.
Jumping in.
Where do we start?
I think we should start with the fact that you went to UNM.
Well, I was thinking me, but it's not about me this episode. I am an alum. I'm a distinguished alum of the
Yes,
University
you
of New
are.
Mexico, College of Fine Arts. And while I was at the University of New Mexico, I met a wonderful woman named Marilyn Tyler, who was the director of the opera program at the time, last century, as they say, who swept me under her wing and was one of my mentors. And subsequently, in partnership with the opera department and the guilds of the Santa Fe Opera, put together an opera mosaics program that toured throughout the state. It was this pastiche of opera.
Beautiful.
So that's the first page, if you will, in the book. And Kathleen Clausen, who's a big part of our world, was one of those artists on the opera mosaics back in the day. The next chapter contained the commission of Shoes for the Santo Niño in partnership with the UNM School of Music for the centennial of New Mexico's statehood. It was one of the first operas I ever was the librettist for, which is part of what's calling me away from the opera.
And what year was that?
Premiered in January of 2012. January 6th was the anniversary of statehood. The composer was Stephen Paulus, and we worked with the UNM Prep School, and there's an amazing chorus of children and featured artists and youth soloists in partnership with Santa Fe Opera. It was a great way for our organizations to collaborate and show up and celebrate, which is what we're looking toward as well.
Absolutely.
And then we worked with the community chorus on the Live Songs Project. And then Opera Storytellers was a big deal for us.
Opera Storytellers is a 2-week camp at the Santa Fe Opera for children entering 3rd through 6th grades. You can hear more about Opera Storytellers in our episode with Amy Owens called Harmony in Process. Opera Storytellers sells out pretty quickly, right? About 24 kids we had this past summer.
In like 3 minutes.
In 2 minutes. 2 minutes, because that's when I start
We
getting
broke
those
the
emails.
internet.
Yes, we break that internet every
the
year
internet.
for the past few years. Yeah, it's a great program. Charles Gamble is doing a fantastic job. Amy Owens.
Our listeners all know them.
Yes.
And this year was amazing because the campers in Albuquerque got to perform in Keller Hall on the stage where the opera also presents.
That's right. And so I would follow up by saying that the UNM Opera for the last 2 years has been in collaboration with Andrea and Don Fineberg, our friends. Andrea wrote a beautiful script for The Magic Flute. She really brought it to life, made it more contemporary. Our students loved it. It was really beautifully done, funny, charming, witty. And so we did that Magic Flute last year. And this year, Don did the pre-concert talk for the opera for Le Nozze di Figaro, and he did that for the Magic Flute as well. And I believe he's going to come back and do that for Little Women this spring. So the UNM Santa Fe Opera connection is strong.
Lots of cross-pollination.
End of history lesson.
And we've decided to codify that with an intent to collaborate, which sounds very fancy.
Very fancy. And I think that's Anna's cue to talk about the ITC.
And now, time for a future lesson. ITC stands for Intent to Collaborate. And in the world of opera, collaboration is basically coded into our DNA.
Right. Well, because the word opera essentially means work for all.
Yes.
And so an opera only works if there are people from all of the ranks pulling forward. And so, yeah, collaboration is definitely intentionally baked in. But I also think as a community, we have to intentionally say we're going to reach out to each other and collaborate. And there's just such a natural lineage here between Santa Fe Opera and UNM Opera that we wanted to formalize that and say a collaboration between these two entities is important for our community. It's important for our students. I mean, Santa Fe Opera is a world-class and premier opera program. Our listeners know that. And our students come to UNM in large part because of the proximity to Santa Fe Opera. So to formalize this collaboration and say to them, you're going to get to learn from the best of the best. is really an important aspect of why we're doing this collaboration, because I think it's important for us to mentor each other both ways.
Yes.
So that the big deal, Santa Fe Opera, is able to help UNM, which is an educational institution, and vice versa. I think UNM also brings something to the table for Santa Fe Opera.
Well, it's stewardship.
Yes.
In relation to the Santa Fe Opera, working with college-age students of the state of New Mexico. It's an extraordinary opportunity for us to see artists come up from our learning institutions and be on the stage in New Mexico at the Santa Fe Opera, which is happening.
It's happening. And I was just thinking, it's so beautiful to see that two of our UNM students/alums, Lydia Grandado and Sfibat Ashera. Sfi was in the shoes for the Santo Niño and then came to UNM, studied with Professor James Flora, and then was in our opera program and is now an apprentice at Santa Fe Opera. It's so beautiful to see that lineage, and same for Lydia from New Mexico and went to UNM and was an apprentice at Santa Fe Opera.
And was a young voice.
Is now off
Having a career.
to the races.
Already having a career.
Big
Really
stages.
doing
Big
it.
stages.
She just sang Donna Ana at Marilla. I mean, just could not be prouder. And then I look at the future. So Amy Owens is doing an incredible job with the young voices, and she and Jamie and I have been able to work a little bit, and we have a student from Young Voices now who's going to be a freshman at UNM, and we have some young students who we've sent to her that are starting this year. So you're just seeing this symbiotic relationship that is just going to keep going. It's going to keep refreshing itself.
Maybe this sounds like we're just name dropping, but we bring up Lydia and Sfi as an illustration of the entire ecosystem that we've been building over time to carve pathways for the development of world-class artists, from opera storytellers, through Young Voices, through UNM, through the Santa Fe Opera Apprentice Program, to main stages around the world.
And the more pathways we can build, the greater diversity, representation, and contribution we can make to the art form and to the greater community.
Well, I recently heard a conversation about education, and it was about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And how do you bring more diversity and representation into the STEM world? Because there's a lot of disparity even between gender, particularly at the higher levels. And they were talking about, we got to stop talking about pipeline like it's just one path. We've even talked about that, the three of us.
Right.
Like we're building a pipeline. It's like, we're not building a pipeline. We're building multiple pathways in. And that's one of the most remarkable things about opera. There's so many points of entry into the art form.
Correct.
I think that's what I really enjoyed from our last season episodes of introducing community engagement and the team, was listening to everyone's paths here. And they came from all over. The inspiration came from all over, and now we're all working together, and it's beautiful.
So, hey, how did you find your way to opera?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, I was playing basketball.
Oh, naturally.
As we all are.
I was always athletic. I come from an athletic family and played basketball and volleyball, and just felt like it wasn't quite for me. And my mom and I were in the car. I was in middle school. And I said, Mom, I think I don't want to do basketball. And she said, well, you have to do something. And I said, well, what am I going to do? And she said, well, your voice is kind of nice when you sing along to the radio. And I said, well, I like to sing. I like musical theater. I already had done a little musical theater in elementary school and, in the chorus of some things at the school.
So you're in middle school when this happens?
Yes. I'm from New Orleans. And so in the elementary school, they had this wonderful teacher who would do a musical every year, and every kid in the school was involved. So she did The Music Man, for instance, which is the one that I remember because I think I was in third grade or fourth grade, and I thought the girl who sang Marion had the most beautiful voice I'd ever heard. And so
It's a great role.
It's a great role.
Yeah.
I was in the chorus of all the shows. No, Nanette, The
Oh.
Jungle Book. And then when I was in 8th grade, at this point, my mom and I had talked, and I was in the chorus, and the choir director did not like me very much. She kept telling me I was too loud.
Oh.
She said,
You
you're
don't
too
say.
loud to be in the choir. And I thought that was kind of cool. And I loved it. So anyway, I auditioned for The Wiz.
Okay.
and I got the role of Eveline, the Wicked Witch, who has this incredible song. And it just inspired me inside and out. I loved singing it. I loved performing. People were excited about my performing, and so I started doing community musical theater in New Orleans, and I sang Tuptim in The King and I, and won like Best Youth or something for the year. And these little things just started adding up. And then when I was a senior in high school, I auditioned for a competition. And I won second place, if I recall. And one of the judges...
Well, you would remember if you won first place, right?
Yes, I would have. I mean, mezzo. I sang Summertime by Gershwin and still love singing it. And this judge came up to me and said, I'm a professor from Loyola University, and we would like for you to come and study music with a scholarship for college. And I looked at him, and I'll never forget, I just looked at him and I said, you can do that?
Oh.
And thus my path began.
Okay, wow.
So
amazing.
I got to college, and I brought a bunch of musical theater in, and I was singing a piece from Closer Than Ever by Harnick and Bach. And if you don't know it, it's a great musical review. And my teacher said, but you have like an operatic voice. And I said, I don't really know what that means.
You're like, hubba what?
I don't know what it means. I was working in the music library, and she said, go watch The Marriage of Figaro. It's the first thing I ever watched.
That was the
Checked out.
first opera encounter.
First.
Okay.
My very first.
The Marriage of Figaro.
In college.
Okay.
On a VHS. Stuck the VHS in. I watched it and I was in love. And I thought, this is cool. And I grew up speaking Spanish and French. So I just naturally had that advantage already.
With languages.
And so, it took me a while, and we don't have to sit here and talk about all that while.
We love talking about the process.
We do.
So
We do.
process is a really big thing here in this room.
Fun fact, my first encounter with theater was No No Nanette.
Oh, really?
I was
love
pushing
it.
the vacuum cleaner back and forth from the wings, but I just wanted to share that.
I love that.
For our listeners, that's where T for two comes from.
Yes.
If people want a point of orientation.
Yeah. T for two and you for me.
Yeah, I'm not singing.
Go.
No. Our listeners do not want that. The last memory of my voice on this podcast, me singing. No. This intent to collaborate, what's the goal? It's like, what's the dream? 10 years from now, ...
My dream is for us to build on what has already been happening with Sfi and Lydia, and to give the students who are at UNM just a little bit more room to learn what the professional side of opera is like. And so my dream is for them to get to come and work with all these incredible artists at Santa Fe Opera. And then they can say, okay, I'm going to audition for this company, and this is the kind of repertoire I'm going to use, and this is what's important, and this is what I'm going to wear, and this is how I'm going to get there, and this is how I'm going to financially make it work. Young singers have so much to think about when they're going out there. And this resource of getting to work with Santa Fe Opera is going to give them, I would say, more shape to how they're going to go out there and make this work.
How about you, Anna?
Well, I heard Olga say bringing people to the opera. I want to bring the opera to the people. And I think that all starts at UNM with the many students that come from all over and heightening music education in general. There's many avenues. And we have such a fabulous staff at SFO that I would like to highlight.
So baby step it. I know we went forward to 10 years from now, but what's the next step?
I think Anna and I are going to get together probably with people who are involved, and we need to come up with a schedule.
That's what I was thinking, yes.
We need to calendar a week where our students get to come to Santa Fe, and potentially some people come to UNM. And we put together workshops and master classes. I think that's the next baby step.
I really love master classes.
Yes.
Big fan, yes.
Yeah.
And we have a model for that in our wonderful partnership with Florida International University. I think we learned a lot over the years working with them.
Nice.
And now we're going to work locally toward global
Yes.
impact,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Local to global.
Yeah.
I love that.
Starting with community collaborations.
Yes.
I love
I
it.
didn't mean to whisper that. I'm so sorry.
Do you want to yell it?
No.
Shout it from the rooftops. So, in a nutshell, that's the Santa Fe Opera UNM intent to collaborate.
And now, let's learn more about our new co-host. Why teaching?
I get asked this a lot. Do you prefer teaching or performing? And I say, I just don't think it's a choice for me. I love them both in different ways. So when I was a young singer in Arizona, I went to Northern Arizona University, ended up in Phoenix. My undergraduate one is in vocal performance with a minor in theater, and my other degree is a post-baccalaureate in music education. So I taught elementary music for 4 years in Phoenix. Well, I was teaching elementary music and private voice, partially because I needed to make a living. I was very much on my own and loving it in my 20s in Phoenix. And I joined the Arizona Opera Chorus. My first show was Carmen. So I had this relationship where I was singing at night, but I was teaching during the day. And then in my third year of teaching, Joel Revson came from the Metropolitan Opera to take over at Arizona Opera. And he said, I need to hear every chorus member by themselves. And when I was done singing, he said, come sit with me. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm teaching at an elementary school. And he said, I think you should take a leave of absence because I think you have an important voice and we need to hear it. And I'd like to help you.
How nice of him.
Isn't that lovely?
Lovely.
I was stunned. That was one of those moments.
Seems like you've had several people in your life, here, come here, look at me, I need to talk to you.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
But you're one of those people now, aren't you?
I hope so.
Yes.
I'm trying to pay it forward as much as I can.
You're modeling it.
For sure. Mm-hmm. And Joel, he reshaped my life. I took a leave of absence. I never went back. And so
But you still kept teaching.
I kept teaching private voice, right? So I was singing for Arizona Opera full time. And I did that for 10 years. I did 10 seasons with them. And my first season, by the way, was The Ring. But we can go back to that at some point.
Trial by Ring.
Yes. Talk about you love it or you don't. I loved it. And so I taught private voice and sang, and my life has just always been a 2-lane highway. I've always done both, needed both, loved both. You know, in voice teaching, they say that to teach voice is to learn to sing again. And so I feel like I'm constantly learning. One of my mentors said to me, Olga, when a student of yours makes a mistake or they have a technical habit, you must look to yourself first. Are you making this technical mistake? And so I've been teaching for, I think this is my 27th year, and I'm constantly learning. And it's awesome because you never stop growing. The voice never stops growing. And I have become a better singer and a better performer because I teach and I direct. And so that's why I teach. I love it so much. I can't even tell you. My students mean so much to me, and to me, that's my legacy.
And don't you have an album coming out in January? I know I'm probably not allowed to talk about that, but someone has an album coming out in January.
I do. Yes, it's called Canciones de mi Corazón, so it's an all-Cuban song album.
Songs of the Heart.
Songs of the Heart, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And it's because I'm Cuban-American. I was fortunate to be born in this country, but my family, my parents are both Cuban. And when I was doing my dissertation and my doctorate for the doctor that's not the best kind of doctor.
According to one.
I chose to do my dissertation on Ernesto Lecuona, Cuban composer who was called the Cuban Gershwin. And I started singing his songs, and then I started researching other Cuban composers. And this has been a lifetime for me of this Cuban recital that my husband and I sing. We were invited to go to Cuba. We did it in Cuba in 2019 with 2 Cuban composers who are still alive, Leo Brouwer and Jose Maria Vitier. Both of their songs are featured on this album. So we recorded it in June with Nate Salazar on piano.
Nathan,
Yes.
New Mexico, fabulous instrumental artist.
Just incredible.
Yeah.
And yesterday we spent 3.5 hours on Zoom with Nate, Sean Flora, the sound engineer, George Case, who's the producer, and Jamie Flora, the singer, and I. and we finished mixing it. But it's beautiful, and the whole album ends with the Cuban lullaby that my grandmother sang to me every night, that my husband and I sing to our girls.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah. So,
Can we hear a snippet?
of the lullaby?
Yeah.
Sure. Esta niña linda que nació de noche, quieren que la lleven a pasear en coche. No, 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 me hacen ruido, que se me despierte las niñas, Mariela y Lucía, la, 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 la.
Oh, I love a lullaby.
Mariela y Lucia are
Yeah.
your baby girls.
My girls.
Bambina.
I know, that's not, this is a folk song just passed down through oral tradition.
What's your favorite line in it?
Just that little ending of like, no, 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 don't make any sound.
That's what it
Because
stood
then
out.
you'll wake up my daughters. Because every parent knows that sleep is everything.
Yeah,
right?
and it's like the reciprocal, like, you stay asleep, too.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Done
right.
and done.
That's right. Anyway, so yeah, I'm excited. I wasn't excited until I heard the playback of the album yesterday, and then George kept looking at me. He was like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Do I not look okay?" He's like, "You keep making these faces. Like you hear yourself sing and you're like," but I think every singer feels
That's
that way.
natural, I think, yeah.
Oh, I've met some singers who don't have that reaction at all. No names.
At this point, both Olga and Andrea have mentioned legacy and lineage. And as we celebrate Andrea's contributions to the Santa Fe Opera, Opera for All Voices, Key Change, and so many other projects, careers, and collaborations, I'd like to point out that when Andrea came to the Santa Fe Opera 33 years ago, there wasn't even a community engagement department at all.
I started at the Santa Fe Opera in December of 1990. I started on December 26th, which is a funny day to start work somewhere. But the Santa Fe Opera at that time would staff up their box office because individual ticket sales started after the new year. So I was a box office rep. And I intended to work one season because I was going to graduate school in costume design. And I was going to design for opera and ballet. That's what I was going to do. And then, and many people have heard me say this, I fell madly in love. And that love affair was with the Santa Fe Opera. It has lasted these many, many, many years. I was so in love with that place. And I still am. And I just wanted to stay a little longer. And what that afforded me was the opportunity to make something, and make something that hadn't necessarily been thought of before. I brought something to the conversation about what opera is and what opera could be. And certainly John Crosby, with the establishment of the apprentice singer programs and the technical apprentice programs, did that. I mean, there's a lot of legacy there, too, shoulders that I stand upon. And the guilds that we talked about earlier in this episode, they were providing education programs in the school. However, being a girl of New Mexico that didn't know anything about the Santa Fe Opera, I grew up in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and I had never heard of the Santa Fe Opera. I came to Santa Fe with my grandma, and we didn't go to the Santa Fe Opera, but I didn't even know there was a Santa Fe Opera. So I felt like, here's an opportunity for me to introduce New Mexico to the Santa Fe Opera and the Santa Fe Opera to New Mexico. And that became kind of the origins of the work that we built up over the years. And particularly for kids, I just wanted kids to know about this incredible, magical place and that it's here and it's ours.
Quiet, please. Children, behave.
And sure, all these tourists come every year and they check the box that they went to the Santa Fe Opera. But now we are seeing, on family nights, we're seeing hundreds of kids in the audience. We are. And it's because they've had an encounter with opera because of the Santa Fe Opera in their classroom. They wrote an opera. You go to the store and you somehow, because I talk to everybody, somebody finds out that I work for the Santa Fe Opera. They're like, oh, my kid was in an opera because they were in an opera at their school. Those things are happening all the time, and they're happening all over our state. And that's really what compelled me to do the work and to keep saying yes, when the idea of having a high school mastery program, then having a high school mastery program not just in vocal performance, but in opera theater, technical opera theater. It's like, yes, our students need these opportunities, and they deserve them.
And they're free.
Yeah, and they're free. But that's the thing, they deserve them. They deserve an opportunity to encounter excellence. New Mexico is so often at the bottom of the list about everything when it comes to child well-being and education. Here's this institution that has so much and the capacity to give back. And it's been incredible to be a part of that. And yes, the team, the community engagement team right now, they're amazing. They're the best team with whom I've ever worked. And I've worked with some really fabulous people that our listeners have gotten to know over the years. This team, keep an eye on every single one of them. Yeah, change is going to happen.
Gonna make me cry.
No, nobody's crying. Nobody's crying.
I'm over here sobbing.
It was Charles McKay who said to me when he first started as general director at Santa Fe Opera in 2008. I don't think he said exactly in 2008 because he started on October 1 of 2008, and listeners will remember that was the big crash. So he was a little preoccupied. But once things got a little more stable, he said, what is it you're doing today that will have an impact 20 years from now? And I'm not going to say that I wasn't thinking about that. I'm a pebble dropper and, where do the ripples go? But it changed the way I thought about it. It's like, that's when I started using the word legacy. We're doing legacy work.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's such a gift to the students and to the children of New Mexico. I have lived in many states, and my oldest daughter's 12. This is the only place I have experienced something like this, where I can take my kids to the opera and they can be a part of it. And Lucia has so enjoyed being a part of the process of the opera club, and I'm really hopeful that Ella can do Storytellers next summer. And I tell all my friends, you have 2 minutes to get online and get them registered.
Oh, yes.
Well, we're hoping to continue to build capacity around storytellers and have camps all over the state.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
He's so great.
Yeah, so to summarize and piggyback off of Andrea's legacy, it's something I've repeated within the last few episodes, I feel. It's something that sticks to me when I think about Andrea and everything she's done within the community engagement and education department, is continuing to bring the Santa Fe Opera to the people. Accessibility is something that we've been striving for and has been continuing to share the plethora of music education here in New Mexico and onward is just, it's where my focus is and my excitement. And I'll find Andrea again along the way, I feel, with this all. So
You can't shake me.
Oh, no, you can try.
And I'm staying involved in Opera for All Voices.
Yeah.
We should tell the listeners that. So I'm leaving, but I'm sticking to Opera for All Voices.
Beautiful. In what capacity? What? What?
I've been invited to be the dramaturg for Interplanetary Opera, which our listeners know is the latest commission for Opera for All Voices. And our listeners were, I believe, primed to hear from the team because we were embarking on the libretto reading. But we've taken a little bit of a right turn and have a new librettist.
Andrea's favorite word, pivot.
Marcy Rendon. So we're going to get to know Marcy and see what comes out of that collaboration between Marcy and Britt Michael Davids.
Terrific. I can't wait to hear
Excited.
it.
I know, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So you'll have to invite me back, maybe.
Absolutely.
So the next time we'll hear from Interplanetary Opera, which will hopefully not be working title anymore, it'll be title, is the newly scheduled libretto reading in May of 2025.
Coming up soon. Feels like tomorrow. Circling back to where we began this episode, it didn't take Olga long to jump right into the co-host seat.
And the key change time machine.
Andrea, what are you planning to pursue? What is artistic pursuits?
I know. See, that's what I was saying. It sounds like this nebulous thing. Like, I don't really want to talk about why I'm really leaving. But our listeners know that I'm a librettist, and I have some really wonderful opportunities. I have a commission, signed, sealed commission. And then I have a couple projects that I'm looking at with the Del Sol String Quartet. And then I'm going to spend time with my, like the other thing that people say, I want to spend more time with my family. Oh, no, I did. I said that one too.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's another beautiful chapter for you.
And honestly, we learned a lot during COVID. And one of the things that became clear to me is there's a time when, regardless of where you are and what you want to still accomplish, it's time to cede the space and step out and let somebody else step in and see what they're going to make of it.
I can't tell you how honored I feel that you both asked me to be here in this space with you, because it has allowed me to actually let go of a couple of things and say, okay, I'm going to create space for this new, exciting endeavor with Key Change, which has been so successful. 5 seasons, is that right?
Yeah.
And
Wrapping the
counting.
5th, yeah.
Incredible. What have the two of you talked about together that you remember so clearly and so fondly?
Anytime you got to record with Andrea Klunder in the studio.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, the production team is, working with Andrea and Cabby and getting to know Colin it's not Andrea and Anna or before Andrea and Brandon. It really is this community that makes Key Change work. Those are my happiest memories, like us all laughing together and being silly. It's not necessarily the things that ended up in an episode per se.
Jumping in to say, if you don't listen to Key Change episodes all the way through the end credits, you should go back because there are a lot of interesting and sometimes silly outtakes there waiting for you.
It's the silly, joyful moments of coming together and sharing story, and not just the two of us, or now, not today, just the 3 of us. And just that reminder that we all got something to say. There's plenty to talk about.
That's right.
And opera's a great medium to organize that around, because it's just bursting at the seams storytelling all the time.
And it's so interesting to me as an opera singer. I love being backstage. Don't you guys love
that's my favorite
backstage?
part. Yes.
Oh, the crew just makes
Well, it's like this
everything
whole little
happen.
magical village comes to life.
Yes.
It's wild at the Santa Fe Opera.
Well, I think my favorite part of joining the Key Change team has been learning the process, because we were able to bring our producer and our team into the workshops, Opera for All Voices workshops, and learning that process. And for me, at least, it's a lot of emails before we get to the workshop. And then I finally get to talk to these heads, and just listening to them talk about the project that we're on and everything it took to get there, and then the presentations. It's a lot of fun. And I think that's all the backstage magic.
I think, too, the delight in discovering what people are thinking about. Like when we talk to the crew from Hometown to the World, the members of the chorus, the youth, and hearing from them, or when we talk to the students at University of Michigan and hearing about what their experience was, that we weren't imposing like, oh, this was so good for you, eat your broccoli, we brought this to you, yum, yum, yum.
You loved it, right?
Yeah. That they're like, this had this value for us. And we were hearing directly from them. And it's back to why I wanted to create a podcast in the first place in association with Opera for All Voices. When you create something that says all voices, you just challenge yourself. So I think those have been the most exciting moments for me is in working with you, is brainstorming and thinking about who else, and then having those conversations with them.
I'd like to share a few words of gratitude as we close this season with Andrea as co-host. Andrea, I have been honored to sit beside you in the studio, in the office, workshops, and countless theater venues. Though, and luckily, our work together does not end here, it is important to me that you know how much I valued every second I've had to learn from you. I find myself quoting you in many of my day-to-day turns. Words as simple as, wear your things, astronauts aren't trapped on the moon, do not bring up a problem without at least 2 solutions. And when thinking of my time working through and out of the pandemic and other roadblock-like situations, these words rang especially true. You see, I made a miracle happen. From the libretto of Shoes from a Santo Niño. Joe Illick said, she cares for words as though every one of them was one of her close personal friends. And how true that is. You are but the best ambassador the opera could have. Thank you for your work, your dedication, and as you continue to embark on your journey as a librettist, I and many others thank you in advance for taking time to create and share with the world more words. Toi 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 and bravi to you.
Key Change is a production of the Santa Fe Opera in collaboration with Opera for All Voices.
We are produced and edited by Andrea Klunder at the Creative Imposter Studios.
I'm Andrea Fellows-Feinberg.
And I'm Anna Garcia.
Our audio engineer is Cabby at Cabby Sound Studios in Santa Fe.
Technical direction by Edwin R. Ruiz.
Production support from Alex Riegler.
Theme music by Renee Orth.
Cover art by Dylan Crouch.
Show notes by Lisa Witter.
This podcast is made possible due to the generous funding from the Hankins Foundation, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and an Opera America Innovation Grant supported by the Anne and Gordon Getty Foundation.
To learn more, visit us at santafeopera.org/keychange. Here's a behind-the-scenes clip from Andrea's check-in with Charles Gamble before the Young Voices orientation from the last episode.
Charles, how many weeks will you still be wearing a name tag that says Director of School Programs?
2.5.
And then?
And then I have the great fortune of coming in as the new Director of Community Engagement, which is bittersweet because that space is made by the fact that Andrea Fellows-Feinberg is retiring after 33 and a third years at the Santa Fe Opera. She is moving on to devote more time to writing libretti, which is super exciting for her, but a seismic shift for community engagement and this organization because, as you know, Andrea has been an extraordinary mentor to people within this organization and also without it. I mean, just the relationships that she's created over this remarkable time here at the SFO are powerful. They've been really, really important in terms of shaping the mission and direction of this organization. And so to have her stepping away is a big shift. It's big.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to working more with you and just indeed watching how Key Change continues to evolve and develop. A change. There we go.